Today I'll discuss the development of Perennial series towards its exhibition next year. I reflect on making this work and integrating the viewer experience. The training of movement is proposed as a framework for a spatial dialogue between a Tegeets lucida plant and I and the viewer. Michael Marder states, plants, like all living beings, articulate themselves spatially. In using the word language to describe vegetal self-expression in all its spatialized materiality, I am not opting for a metaphor. Oh, sorry. This master's research developed from my involvement with the RMIT Brunswick dye garden, extracting colour for textiles applications. Here we challenge some dominant presumptions that raw materials appear magically when needed, are on call and in endless supply, disappear from conscious awareness once they've served their purpose. As Martin Heidegger puts it, the revealing that rules in modern technology is a challenging, which puts to nature the unreasonable demand that it supply energy that can be extracted and stored as such. Tending these plants and extracting their dyes, I observed a mismatch between plant growth and my readiness to consume them for colour. As Marta points out, there is an irreducible time lag between the human and the plant, with wildly different timescales of movements, behaviours, or responses. I became interested in how humans regard living plants in terms of their utility, be this aesthetic, medical, technological, or as food. According to Heidegger, the calculative type of thinking that predefines entities as resources comes about through our interactions with raw materials and technologies of production. My practice critiques the instrumentalist mode of existence via the initiation of plant artist dialogues. Perennial series has an indefinite duration. It will continue until I or the living Tegeets lucida can no longer participate. The conflict between the plant's own interests and my artistic agenda is continually negotiated. Here, artistic actions and the spatial articulations of the Tegeets lucida are reciprocally engaged. Sunlight is a central focus, a kind of experiential medium that connects the Tegeets lucida and I. Marta examines how light has been connected to the nutritive, digestion, and understanding in Western metaphysics. It's also part of everyday vernacular to say that someone has seen the light or been enlightened. In this artwork, Spela Patrick stands between an artificial light source and a bed of cress for 12 hours each day in what she describes as a failure of plant-human intercognition. Perennial series similarly makes use of bodily endurance and the practice of thinking. What's distinct is the locating of my still body in the plant's territory, the garden, which enacts a symbolic entering into the imagined sensorial experience of the plant. Intentional action is proposed by Val Plumwood, Paco Calvo, and others as a kind of intelligence. I wouldn't consider Patrick's artwork to necessarily be a failure of intercognition. The bleaching and elongation of the crest where the shadow is repeatedly cast provokes the display of an intentional, responsive action which wouldn't otherwise exist. Perennial series is a rearrangement of the tending, harvesting, and extraction of colour from a Tegeets lucida plant. For 15 minutes at a time, I physically support the plant to receive water and sunlight. In turn, I'm nourished by contemplative meditative thinking and sensations accompanying my stillness, notably the warmth and the light of the sun. Here, there's no means of accessing my smartphone or laptop. In my physical tethering to the Tegeets lucida, I'm now disconnected from the digital network of consumption and work. Some would say I'm idle, but my labour now serves the Tegeets lucida. I realised during one of these sessions that the Tegeets lucida is training me to be still and to persevere with repetition and indeterminacy. I sit with being disconnected from the digital realm, to connect to the physical sensations of being in the garden and the practice of thinking. This work invokes an intimacy and a space of solitary internalisation. It's been influenced by a desire to retreat from omniscient technological beckonings to perpetually consume, progress, work, be visible, be in public. My retreating mimics the gradual retreating of the Tegitsla cedar underground, to the point where it is now a solitary stem awaiting an uncertain future regeneration. Although I'm reflecting inward, experiencing this environment in an imagined plant-like state, there's still a desire to connect, but in a very specific way. How can I extend the cultivation of this contemplative meditative space to the gallery and the viewer? Kellerme's distant interaction can help inform how interactions between the viewer and Perennial series might be set up. Distant interaction refers to an interactive artwork where no physical operation of an instrument or overt instruction is necessary for its control. I anticipate that pairing the control of the Perennial series time lapses with viewer movements in the gallery can achieve what Kellerme's identifies as a sensation of the artwork looking back at the viewer. By pairing control of the projection of Perennial series with viewer movements, it's intended that the viewer senses being seen and even trained, but is this by the artwork, the subjects within it, the artist, or some other remote entity? In Krista Somera and Laurent Mignonneau's interactive plant growing, viewer proximity to the actual plants in the gallery controls the virtual growth of plants on a screen. This takes place via an algorithm sensing electrical changes in the plants brought about by human proximity. This is what controls the development of imagery. Team Lab's Flowers and People pairs viewer movements with virtual plant death and decay in their immersive digital installation. Viewer stillness is conversely paired with virtual plant growth. The digital installation uses an algorithm that develops imagery in real time in response to the viewers, and its progression is endless. Perennial series isn't controlled by an algorithm, and the time lapses have already been generated in a private location beyond the gallery. It's not immersive in a visually spectacular way, but purposely refers to an external environment that the viewer is invited into. Perennial series is a kind of anti-spectacle in its refusal to inspire awe and amazement. This cultivation of a space of retreat is removed from a digital consumption heavily dependent on spectacle and finite resources. To conclude, there's a contradiction inherent in the viewer movements being paired with pausing of the time lapses and viewer stillness causing them to resume. I want to produce the sensation of being drawn towards the contemplative meditative space that's depicted. Thank you.
Thank you indeed.